This afternoon, I'd like to talk to you about three things: a dream, diamonds, and leadership. So first, I would like to ask you to go with me back to Germany when I was a 6-year-old boy. And during that time, it was still normal that you played outside whenever possible. And so I was outside oftentimes, and we lived in northern Germany in a very working class average family in a very normal apartment. And when we were outside, I always saw these airliners go across the sky, hitting the Atlantic and then going to all kinds of places across the globe. And when I pointed up to them, my mom used to say, "Look, Uncle Gert is up there." By the way, she did say this pretty much for every plane that went by. Now, Uncle Gert is my godfather, and he worked for Lufthansa. And I didn't really know exactly what he was doing for them, but some of the things that he did and how he acted and how he showed up, I believe, were the fuel that fueled my dream of getting into flying and aviation. When he came to visit every few times, every few years, he was oozing this kind of charisma. He just entered into the room and you knew immediately somebody special had come in. When I had an opportunity to touch the fabric of his shirt or his clothing, it felt super smooth and very expensive. And another thing that I really remember vividly is that he used to smoke a pipe. And even though he left, oftentimes for many years at a time, for a while, the sweet, heavy smoke of the pipe stayed in the apartment and reminded me of him. So if you fast forward for 10 to 12 years, when I got out of school, no surprise, I applied for Lufthansa to join their flying program. And they took me through their evaluation and assessment, and they do some academic training and some physical examinations and some medical stuff, even a little bit of simulation exercises that go in the direction of what you do with flying. And then you go home and you wait. And so I was so excited on the result. And for the first week, every time I ran down a flight of 4 stairs down from the apartment that we lived at to see if the mail with this distinct logo of Lufthansa had arrived, and it didn't. And then week 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, 35 times I ran up and down to open the mail, and finally in week 8 on a Thursday, I remember that still like it was a few days ago, finally a letter from Lufthansa. And you have to know, Germans don't open their mail in the hallway. So I had to run up as fast as possible to get up to the apartment, rip apart the envelope and see what was in there. And it said, "Mr. Meyerhofer, we are happy to let you know that you passed successfully the examination for flight training with Lufthansa. Everything else, blah, 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 call us at whatever, 2 p.m. I had made it. I would be able to realize my dream of flying. So a few days later, this actual appointment had arrived, and so I picked up the phone and I called to talk to the lady at Lufthansa to get more details, and she said, "Hi, Mr. Meyerhofer. We are so excited that you passed successfully through our assessment, but I have some not so great news that we didn't want to put into the letter. Actually, the economy is not so well right now, as you may know, and we are actually not bringing in new students, but we will put you on your list, on our list, and let you know when we bring in students again." And I was stunned. I was like, I had no words. It was like a clamp had grabbed my tummy. I felt like my dream had already ended before it really started. I could barely ask her, "How long do you think it's going to take until you start bringing students in again?" And she said, well, I can't really be sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's a few years. Wow. I was done. My dream of Lufthansa was gone. I had no plan B. I was literally miserable at that time. Now, a few days later, my mom comes home from work, and she used to work at a Navy outfit in town as a secretary, and she had told her boss about my misfortune. And he said, you know, the Navy flies planes too. And you can imagine how this went. I went to the Navy recruiting office just a few days later, went in there and said, okay, to the recruiter, I'm here. And he said, son, what would you like to do for the Navy? And I said, I want flying planes. He says, son, before you can fly planes, you have to learn how to drive a ship. So, well, but I don't want to learn how to captain a ship. I want to fly planes. He says, well, if you want to fly planes, you have to go to the Air Force. Boom, out of there, right to the Navy, from the Navy to the Air Force office, getting the application in, getting to the assessment center, getting through the testing. And this time it was actually easier because I had done it before. And so a little while later, I got the notice that I actually made it through that training, and my dream was alive. I could fly. And then for the next about 20 years, I was going through officer training, ultimately flight instructor training, which, for those of you who don't know, they teach you how to recognize when the student is about to kill you. And fly a lot and learn a lot. One thing during the training, which most of you may not realize, the NATO training for all those European countries actually happens in Wichita Falls, Texas. So there I was during that training time with people from 25 other countries, and at that time, I was first introduced to formation flying. And we learned very quickly that formation flying actually went better and worked better, especially when you were pretty young and pretty novice in it, when you knew the people that you were flying with. And so, for me, the diamond appeared. Because one form of formation flying is flying in a diamond formation, meaning 4 planes in perfect alignment. And I practiced this, I taught it, I was involved in it for a whole 22-year career in the Air Force. And what I found out is that there are a lot of things that go into making this diamond formation perfect. Now I want you to imagine how that feels. So just for a moment, think you are going down an interstate or a highway at 60 miles an hour, and you're trying to stay in the same position in formation with 3 other cars around you. So you're there? So now you're going down this highway, but somebody gives you a really, really strong engine, and you go 10 times as fast, 10 miles an hour, 600 miles an hour, which is diamond formation speed. You there? So now imagine somebody takes away the asphalt, and you're in 3 dimensions, and you're flying your formation, your diamond through the sky, through the air, through the clouds, through the wind, through the changing temperatures. That's what you try to achieve when you fly in diamond formation. When I first did it with a real strong plane, I had the good fortune that the planes that I was in typically had 75,000 horsepower per engine. So the way this worked was you got into the plane, you got strapped in like a race car driver so you could barely move. The canopy is closing, the plane actually taxis to number 1 position, the part where you get ready for takeoff. You line up, you hit the brakes, you put in the power, the engines spool up, you hit the afterburner, and then 150,000 horsepower are hitting you as you're going down the runway, and then finally the asphalt goes away and you ascend. And shortly after that, you will be joined by the other 3 planes to get into your diamond formation. Now, doing this, as you may have heard before, is pretty straining on your body. And after doing this for about 20 years, my body started telling me that it's getting harder and harder and harder to be in those formations and in this flying and in this training for flying. And I reached a shift moment. Shift moment is actually the moment where you don't have any easy answers anymore, but you know you have to make a change. And so for me, I decided to leave the Air Force and join the corporate world and try to find out how what I learned there would transfer into the business and corporate world. And as I got there, I became really, really intrigued to leadership. Remember I told you about dreams, told you about diamonds, then leadership. I studied, I read case studies, I read books. I went a little crazy actually. Got a master's degree and a PhD in leadership. And what I found out that there are really 4 core aspects from which everything flows, and guess what? They're the 4 corners of the diamond in the formation. And so I created a proprietary system and model and approach that I call the diamond formation leadership model. And those 4 corners of the diamond that I believe make you as emerging or established leaders that want to get better the perfect leaders of your diamond formation. The first one is team building. And that's because you need to be engaged with your team. You need to know your team. You need to help your team. You need to advance your team. You need to find the person who is ultimately going to replace you so you can ascend to the next level. The second one is cultural sensitivity. And what I mean by that is that more and more people, especially here in our area on the West Coast, we are in an environment where we're working with many, many people from many, many different places. And they have their heritage, their story, their background, their desires, their dreams. And as a leader of a diamond formation, you want to make sure that they can realize their dreams, but also that they really reach their potential for you. The third one is globalization. Yes, we speak about information overload, but what globalization really means in this context is you can find awesome ideas, awesome solutions, awesome ways of finding something that you haven't thought about to make your product or service better all around the globe. And the technology is now available to get you there. So you want to make sure that you don't just look within your own little area or your own little region or maybe your large company, but all across the globe for the amazing solutions that are out there. And the fourth one is collaboration. I strongly believe that the day of competition is over. That if you still think you can outcompete people that are already on the track to collaborate with each other, you will not win anymore. In collaboration, you find like-minded people who want to help you because they have good ideas, and you help them because you have good ideas. And together, you get to a better result. And that can be in your company, department, division, in your organization, and beyond. So those are the 4 aspects of diamond formation leadership. And what I want to ask you and leave you with today is how balanced and how well in position are you in your diamond formation? How much have you done with your team? How much do you collaborate? How much do you look into the world of what's there? And how much do you pay attention to their heritage and background? And when you do this, you will find out it never is a done job. You always have to keep trying to balance the formation, and that's really the secret. Thank you.